How's everybody doing? I'm Dan, back from Bleacher Seat Sports, and I'm with the creator of the Bronx Zoo, Jake Kosack. Jake, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Dan. Thank you for having me on.
You're welcome. And I want to get into it first. I always start with this question. What advice would you give to young people getting interested or who are interested in joining the sports broadcasting or sports coverage field?
Absolutely. Look, best thing I can ever tell anybody trying to do their own thing, trying to, learn from a mentor is ask the from my perspective of what I do, ask the questions you want to know. First off, if you want to be successful, if you're a fan, you're going to have the same questions that other people have. Ask the questions that you want to know. Um, but when it comes down to, getting into the industry, I'm very transparent. I'm very honest about it. When you're in college, staying in on a Friday night when you could be working, that stuff matters. Not, focusing on the irrelevant aspect of college. Sometimes social life is very important in college. I learned a lot from the people I met, but instead of looking at college as an opportunity to party, look at it as an opportunity to network. And that's just being honest with all the young people out there, especially if you go to college. You have an idea of what college can be. I used it as an opportunity at every point to make friends in the industry. I worked 4 jobs with a full-time schedule. Did I have to? Maybe not, but I wanted to work as hard as I possibly could. I waited tables. I was an RA, worked in the marketing department, and then I had an internship on top of that. So, I mean, people will think RA, you were an RA, right? But you know what? I learned how to become a leader. I learned how to, understand the role of discipline and keeping, order, I guess you could say, make sure things don't get too crazy, and responsibility. I mean, I felt like I was responsible for a lot of, protecting the people in my building, and it was nothing but a great experience. And I think you've asked anyone who asks, I was a nice RA. But it's things like that. Like it's just constantly working. I knew you're going to hear that all the time. I try to give different answers. Oh, work your hardest. At the end of the day, you might not be the best looking person in the room. You might not be the funniest person in the room. You might not be the most intelligent person in the room. But the only thing that you can possibly control in your life is if you're the hardest working person in the room. I live by that statement because you have one thing that you can determine when you're in a room with 150 applicants, 150 people, is if you're going to be the one to stay late, come in early, dedicate it. And I think a lot of people say it all the time. I'll end with this. Um, unless you're obsessed with it, I hear this a lot, the idea of an obsession. People say, oh, you don't want to get burnt out. Oh, you don't want to, overwork yourself. There's someone out there that will work themselves to the absolute limit. There's someone out there that will work as humanly possible to make sure that they get what they want. And unless that's you, you're not going to get it. And I mean, it comes off as harsh, but I'm still learning as I go up in my career, and I think people will tell you that's the truth. I mean, you got to be absolutely obsessed with it, and you got to work harder than anyone.
I couldn't agree more. I'm someone that's worked really hard. I'm working for my school's digital network, so I'm in the athletics department.
Awesome,
We put together production of like sports games that go out on SNY and NBC Philly,
nice.
and the sports director at my radio station and a networking officer for the sports industry club. So I completely understand where I might not be the most talented or the best in the room, but there's no one that's going to outwork me.
Love it,
It's the best mindset to have.
love it. But Philly, you got to change that to New York. Eight
we
games in
well, we're on
Philly.
SNY.
Oh, okay, okay, cool. I love Philly though. Nothing against the Philly fans. I love Philadelphia, so
I'm not an Eagles fan, but other than that,
good.
they're all right.
Yeah, you
It's a
got the
good
Yankee
city.
stuff. I believe you. I believe you.
Yeah. All right. So you are the creator of the Bronx Zoo. It's
Mhm.
a account that goes around Yankee Stadium before and after the games, interviewing people.
Yep.
Can you give us some, or can you give the listeners some insight to how the account came about
Yeah,
and what some of your goals for 2023 are?
absolutely. So yeah, essentially what the Bronx Zoo is, we interview Yankee fans. We are the first of its kind baseball show for the fans by the fans. No one was doing anything like it in baseball. And one day, I was at my former job. I worked at a couple places after college. Worked at a company called Steiner Sports as an intern, which was one of the most incredible experiences of my life. And I got to kind of dip my toes into the idea of working with professional athletes, how to hold yourself to a respectful level. Then I got a job at a fashion internship, I guess you could say, which was totally off the beaten path of where I wanted to go. But I learned how to network. I obtained the skills of how to get in contact with big companies and network and find contacts. From there, I wanted to get into media finally, so I got a job at TMZ Sports, and I focused on building their baseball side of it. And I think that they would agree that uh, we were successful. I got a lot of baseball interviews and a lot of sports interviews. Um, People will always ask me, why'd you take that job? I took it because it was an opportunity, and not everyone was giving me an opportunity. And I never had a bad experience there. I had nothing but fun. I met people. I had great interviews, and I had stuff that got picked up by some of the biggest news networks in the world. So it was an opportunity, and I took it. From there, I took another opportunity at a cable news network where I was a field producer. I was filming, I was shooting, I was editing packages on the fly. We were going live in the middle of the desert in New Mexico. It was crazy. It was fun. Got a lot of experiences of acting under pressure. How to edit things very quickly, but up to a certain quality. And it was there that my boss actually, I don't even know if she knows that just led me in where I am today, but asked me to go get some man on the street stuff on a certain topic, which I couldn't even remember. But I do remember standing on the corner of 50th and First in a Yankee sweatshirt. And I asked someone, hey, you got time for a quick question for a piece I'm doing? And they said, is it about the Yankees? And I said, no. Oh, then I'm good. And then when that man walked away, I said, wow, that would be fun. Just doing this, like, man, that would be cool if I and in that moment, I realized like this could be cool. Like, is anyone even trying that? Like, you used to see it on the 90s TVs, right? After the games and stuff. But imagine just asking people questions and giving them some moment of fame, right? And it was from there I became obsessed with the idea. Went home, um, started editing a logo together, things like that. And yeah, it is where it is. I don't want to take up too much time with this question, but back to the idea of being obsessed with it. I I wanted to start it right away, but 2 years ago, September 2021, it was September 10th. I'm sorry, it was September 4th, and it was a game on a Saturday, but a tornado came in and knocked out the Metro North, which is my way of getting to the stadium. And it was the first day I was going to start this with my friend who lived in the Bronx at the time. And I said, you know what? I'm gonna make this happen. I got to get my camera from my house. I was staying with my grandpa at the time, um, but I had my camera equipment up at my house near
Mhm.
Poughkeepsie, New York, and I said, I got to get home. I'm not waiting anymore. I want to start this today. There's a very limited opportunity and very small amount of games left. I walked 20 miles through Westchester to go and get my camera equipment. My dad ended up having to pick me up the rest of the way, but I got 20 miles farther, got my stuff, and September 2021, we just, started asking people all these different ideas about the Yankees, their opinions, some fun stuff, and that led to building up the energy of the crowd outside.
Yeah, it's something that I think a lot of people that don't know yet are going to learn in 2023. Are you guys going to do it? How often would you guys say you're going to do it in 2023?
Well, yeah, the success of the 2022 season certainly makes me want to, like I said, I left my job a year ago to pursue this full time. Some people call it stupidity. Some people like myself call it the only possible way, because I knew I worked, like I said, worked 4 jobs in college. I gave myself a year to make this work. Um, and it has, I believe, but I have a lot more to go. If this is where I want to be, I'm not even here yet, right? So I know that the only way to make this get bigger is to truly be all in. So October, I traveled to Cleveland, traveled to Houston. Last year went to Boston. I want to be at as many games as possible. I'm going to be there opening day. I'm going to spring training games. I'm gonna be there because I think, with this social media aspect, I encourage everyone to, pursue their dream. If they want to do something like this, go for it. But thankfully, I think we've hit a point where people know, like, we're the Bronx Zoo, we're the guys out there at Gate 6, and people want to come and see us. They want to talk to me with that mic, and I'm not saying it's about me because it's not. It's about us. But they look for that mic, that jacket, and they say, "I want to talk to the zoo," because they know we're gonna do something with their video that not everyone's gonna do, and that's truly care about it. I had a gentleman ask me the other day about he wants to start what I want to do. I believe he said in Kansas, which I've gotten before. I've gotten Houston. I've gotten people in for the Mets reach out to me asking me how they can do what we do, and I told him, just make sure every single video you post, understand that you might be in the mall, but for everyone else, this is their one time they got to talk. So make sure that you put the most thought and quality into that one 30-second video that you possibly can. And even if it takes 2 hours to make a 30-second video perfect, do it.
Yeah, that's amazing. It really is. And I'm excited to see what Yankee fans have to say this year. I know you are too.
I can't wait.
So and the other thing you got to do, which I think is incredible, is you got to go to the Yankees signing weekend. I think
Mm-hmm.
that's what it's called. So what was
Pinstripe
that?
Pride.
What was it?
Pinstripe Pride.
Pinstripe Pride. I blanked on me again, but what was that experience like? And who was your favorite interview?
Yeah, I mean, first off, shout out to Hall of Fame signings. They were incredible to work with. We got in contact and they said they were absolutely interested in me coming and doing what we do. It was all Yankees centered. So they were incredible. The access they gave us, they basically, gave us free to walk around. And when it comes to the player interviews and things like that, I tell people all the time, I'm very grateful in my career to have met almost every hero I ever had, every person I always wanted to meet. I made it happen. And I truly treat every interview I do the same. So if I'm out with you on Gate 6 or I'm interviewing a player on the New York Yankees, it's all equal to me because everyone's opinions matter about the team. So I try not to change who I am when I'm in these interviews. Of course, I'll try and be a little bit more quiet than I am outside. But those opportunities, when I'm in them, I think I just take a second. I hear a lot of people say they wish they appreciated the moment more when they're 30 years into their career. Even now, I'm taking a second and like being like, wow, interviewing Paul O'Neill, interviewing players on the Yankees. And I think you watch those videos, you can see it in my face, like I'm a kid that's 8 years old again, always wanting to meet them. So it's really just, something I'm grateful for. But I always try to conduct myself the same. I think we got some really cool answers. We broke some news with Doc Gooden. He's going to have a movie made about his life. And I've met Doc a couple times, so it was cool to get that story out there. Um, Oswaldo Cabrera, player on the Yankees right now, who I have to say might be one of the coolest people with fans I've ever seen in my entire life. I've seen him multiple times now, and he's just the man. But yeah, I mean, the opportunity itself is something I'm very grateful for. And I just hope I'm asking the right questions that the fans want to know. And like I said, I'm a fan myself. So I try and give, inspirational questions to help them give their advice. And I think everyone else is out there asking, what do you think about the team this year? What do you think about this in the sports media world? So I try to spice it up with some different ideas and some different questions. But it was an absolute blast.
Well, I
And
think that
I'm sorry, my favorite one. I don't know if I had a favorite one, but meeting Michael Kay again, I've had that opportunity before. To be able to interview him and people know my goal where I want to be has always been with the S Network. To interview him, it was a moment I was like, this is pretty cool, I gotta say.
Michael is an awesome human being. He's part of a lot of Yankee fans now life, like a huge part because he's talking so much.
Yep.
So that's one of my goals. So it's pretty cool to see someone else achieve that.
You'll get there. I believe it.
Thank you.
You
I
reached out to
appreciate
me to have me on. Like that shows motivation alone. So
it's, and I think I'm gonna get a little off tangent here, but I think the thing is a lot of people don't realize when they're trying to get into it is that having someone say no, it stinks, but it should never discourage you. because for the 8 people that say no, there's always going to be the 2 people that say yes.
Yeah. And another thing to people who get discouraged, um, I think I tell people all the time, I gratefully have gotten a lot of people watching my videos now. Still hope to make it grow even more, right? That's the goal. I don't act different on my quality of videos or the quality of stuff I'm putting out than when two people were out there watching. If two people cared about my stuff enough, if one person cared enough that they loved what I was doing, and that's what it was like in the beginning, one of my friends or one of my family members, distant cousins, you never know who's going to love your stuff. If one person likes what you're doing, that one person should be all that matters. It shouldn't be like, why don't more people? Because the other people will come if you continue to make stuff that you care about. That's what it felt like in the beginning. It's like, okay, my friends are liking this, but when are other people going to be liking this? And I could say this 100% honest now. The people that love the zoo the most are people I have never met in my entire life until doing the Bronx Zoo. People who I've met through the Yankee fans. They're not people I grew up with. They're not people, of course, my mom and dad are my biggest fans and my
Mhm.
sisters. But what I'm saying is your fans could be people you never know in your life until you start putting yourself out there. So don't act different. Have an idea, pursue it, stick to it, and keep going.
That's honest. It's very good advice. It's something that, like, being a young college student, one of my biggest goals was to make myself stand out
Mm-hmm.
because me going to a smaller school, Monmouth University,
Mm-hmm.
it's a smaller school and I don't have the connections of a place like Syracuse or a USC, which are powerhouses. So you have to make yourself stand out.
Absolutely. I can relate to that. I went to a small school in Newburgh, New York called Mount St. Mary College. But when you're at a small place, it's easier to stand out. And when you stand out at a small place, you have no problem trying to stand out in a big place. So,
Exact. Couldn't agree more. And you have to really give credit. And I think one of the big things is just as I'm starting to rise up is you never want to take anyone that you've worked with for granted or
nope.
anyone you've it's really a humbling experience when you see all these things happen.
No. One day you're going to be interviewing, Hal Steinbrenner. You won't even remember this one.
No, I remember every interview, so
That's the way to be.
this is one of my favorites.
Thank you.
So you also founded a company, Get Better
Hmm.
Motivation. So what went into the founding of that company, and what is that company like?
Yeah, I think I got the logo. There we go. This is my other logo. So these are my two logos. The zoo and Get Better. Two things that changed my life. Thank you for asking about it because no one really talks about Get Better anymore. But when I was in college, so that was a way, a little bit of background into me. February 29th, which was a leap year, surprisingly, is in a
Hmm.
week. I count it as February 28th because leap year only comes 4 years. Biggest day of my life. Biggest day, hands down, in my life ever. And I'll give some insight to as why. Grew up a little, people would say a cocky kid, but it was all like a mask, I think you could say. Like I was very like I didn't have any self-confidence. I hit a point where I was in college and I was as low as you could possibly be. I was extremely overweight, didn't exercise, did okay in school, like college. I did terrible in high school. I was on academic probation a couple times, which and when I was in elementary school, I took speech therapy because I couldn't talk correctly, ironically.
Hmm.
So, it wasn't the best student. I did theater for a long time and I loved it. It helped me get, out of my shell, be on a stage, be in front of people, perform. And I think that's what I'm doing now on 161st Street. A little different, but I played football for a year in high school. Wasn't the best athlete. So once I got to college, it's just like I felt like I had nothing going for me. I felt like I wasn't um worth it. I felt like I wasn't like good enough. And that was it. Like I was just like down on myself. And I had great friends around me, gratefully. I had a great parent. I had the best family growing up, still do. It wasn't anything like that. I was just like, man, what does every college kid that age think? No girls like me. Well, I'm not an athlete. I'm not this. And I remember going. A couple things happened on that weekend, and I was going to watch the Oscars, the Academy Awards, with my two friends in college. We got food. We were gonna watch because I'm a diehard Rocky Balboa fan, like
Mhm.
one of the biggest Rocky Balboa fans you will ever meet in your entire life. I watch it every day. I at the gym. I worked out this morning on the treadmill. I'm watching Rocky 4. So it's a huge part of my life. And he was nominated for an Oscar. And some people might be like, this story sounds so weird, but it's just he was like a hero. Besides Derek Jeter growing up, my parents, he was someone I looked up to. Whenever things, felt like they were getting hard, I could watch Rocky and okay, stop being a baby, get up and go do something about it. So he lost the Oscar for Best Supporting Actor for Creed. Creed 3 comes out in a
Are
week.
you excited?
I can't wait. Absolutely can't wait. And I went to my room that night and I'm just like, man, nothing's gonna change. Nothing's gonna change. And I started watching, and like even people who work their ass off aren't getting what they deserve. And I went to my room and I started watching him run up the steps over and over and over again. Rocky 2, leading all the kids up to the top of the steps. Rocky 1 by himself. And I said to myself, I'm like, no one's going to do anything for me. I got to wake up and start doing it myself. That moment, that exact moment in time changed everything about who I was. I cut out every food that I loved, everything I loved to eat: pizza, pasta, soda, sugar, all of it, cold turkey, none. Nope, didn't have it for 5 months. I worked out 3 hours a day. I had a staircase at my school that was probably taller than the Rocky steps. I've run the Rocky steps enough to know these steps were taller. And I would run to the top, go to the bottom, run to the top, go to the bottom, run to the top, go to the bottom, nonstop. Um, Long story short, I know I'm kind of going on with this answer. 70 pounds lost in 5 months. Um,
Oh my God.
yep. I completely changed everything about my life. And then swear that, I felt good about myself again. I started wearing cool clothes I always wanted to wear. Not that this is cool, it's just a sweatshirt, but I started changing who started becoming who I wanted to be. I got my dream internship. I became the president of my class. I started getting 4.0 GPA. I started like whole life 360. Thankfully now I'm at a point where I can eat some pizza and some pasta, but I still work out every day. Um, but I credit Rocky Balboa. It just taught me that life's gonna hit you in the face 100 times, and if you get knocked down, no one's gonna tell you to get up. Most of the time, I don't know if you ever seen the movie Rocky. If you haven't, you absolutely should.
I may consider watching it right after this.
I'm telling you, there's a scene. I won't get into detail if you haven't seen it. Round 14, he gets knocked down. Every single person in the arena is telling, even the people he loved, stay down, stay down. Everyone wants him to stay down, but he gets up. He continues to keep going.
That's
And
powerful.
it that that scene and the opposite of that in Rocky 2, there's a scene where he's training, where he's in the park by himself and he goes down again. And I love the parallel of that because this time he's by himself. No one's watching him, but he gets up. So that was basically Get Better. A couple years later I started the company called Not Good, because I used to scream that at myself when I'd run. I became a runner. I started running 10 miles a day. I started saying, "You're not good enough, get better. Not good enough, get better." And my sister kind of caught on to me, kept putting that in my Instagram posts and things like that. And on Christmas, she gave me a shirt that said, "Get better" on the front, "Not good enough, get better" on the back. And I started selling the merchandise and things like that. And it became really a story and a personal diary that I give out to the world.
That's unbelievable. And I know this sounds crazy, but I'm going through the same thing right now. I've been trying to lose weight. I've been trying to go to the gym every day. And I've found this mindset of it's not I'm going to go to the gym, I'm going to the gym.
No,
I'm going to work out. It's not I'm going to, it's I'm going. Like if that makes sense.
I get it. It kind of goes from I have to go to let's go. Like
Hmm.
you start to enjoy. And if you anyone who's trying to lose weight out there, look, you're gonna struggle. And even when you lose all the weight, I put some weight back on, I lost it again. Don't let yourself get caught in. Like I got way too skinny at one point. Then I gained a lot of weight back because I got injured. And I got like a leg injury. So that doesn't help at the gym. Got over that, lost the weight again. So it's like you're gonna have ups and downs, peaks and valleys. Just learn to enjoy somehow. Love your music, love what you're watching. Once you learn to enjoy going to the gym, it's never a dread. It's like I enjoy. I look forward to going for a run because you put on your music and you're transported to a different world. You're not got no problems, you got no issues, and it's all about staying motivated and keeping going and just keep at it. That's all you can
That
do.
that's awesome. And I think that's really good advice to anyone that is trying to lose weight. It's definitely something like I love it because you're going, like, as you said, you're away from the real world for a certain amount of time that you can just enjoy yourself, be yourself, relax. And it actually helps you gain confidence
Yeah,
in what you're
100%.
doing. And because it's like you now have that space where you can just go and be yourself and you encourage yourself to be yourself more around other people
Mhm.
because you're allowed to be yourself out in the gym and it makes a big difference.
Yep.
And now, of course, I'm not going to have you on this podcast without asking you some Yankee questions.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
So, what do you think the outlook on this year for the Yankees is? I know that over the offseason, there's been a lot of fans that have said that we didn't do enough. We didn't improve the offense enough. I know before we went on and started recording, we were talking about how DJ LeMahieu is an improvement to this offense. But even then, there's a little bit of a hole at third base offensively if
Mhm.
Donaldson produces that way again. And there's a massive hole in left field with if Oswaldo Cabrera is not out there. So what do you think the outlook of the season is on? The outlook of the season is?
Look, the outlook for me is we're the same team that made it to the ALCS last year. We're going to do it again. I think the team is banking on a great first half, which is inevitable. We have the same structure, right? Um, this isn't the final product of the team. We have a deadline.
Mm-hmm.
Last year we got Frankie, it didn't turn out well, but we got Benintendi, and that turned out great. Sadly, he got injured, so at the end it wasn't ideal, but he contributed. We will get a guy to fill one of the outfield hole or whatever hole we have at the time. That's going to improve this team enough to bring us to the World Series. We were almost there last year. We got injuries. DJ's healthy, a healthy DJ LeMahieu and Anthony Rizzo. This team wins a World Series. We lost him a good chunk of last year. Donaldson played a beautiful third base. Needs to improve offensively. He's the type of guy that probably went home this offseason and did nothing but work. And from what I'm hearing, that's what he did. He went and he worked and he figured it out and did what he had to do. So I think that he will turn it around. I think we have some young guys coming up in the ranks with Volpe and Peraza. They're going to contribute. We have a better bench than we did last year because if Volpe's out there, that means we got Donaldson and IKF on our bench. And to be honest, they were good at certain points of the season. IKF was good offensively. His defense, if it was a little bit better there, people weren't talking about IKF. IKF was good offensively. He hit what 270 something. He was
Mm-hmm.
great on the base paths. He brought something different. He seemed to always be on base. So we point out the negatives, but I try to be a guy who's going to point out the positives. Donaldson turns it around. He's an MVP. He was a former MVP, 2015. He knows what he's doing. He's been a superstar in this league. He will figure it out. And if not, we have guys to back him up. I know I personally love Jose Trevino. Always
Love
have.
him.
Love the way he plays. We got Kyle behind him, and then we got another guy, Austin Wells. He's starting to look really good. So I think that we're going to be more prepared with our substitutions. I know we struggled last year in the outfield. I know we brought up Andujar and then we brought up Florial, who I still think could be a good major league player. Um, our pitching set. Yeah, we lost Frankie, but we got Rodon. We got Clark Schmidt who could fill that hole until
Herman.
and Herman. They could both be in the bullpen. We got a healthy Michael King. I don't
That's
think people
huge.
recognize. I'm sure they do. I'm not trying to say they don't. I try to remember sometimes like he was a huge part of our success in the first half. He was unbelievable lights out. And this time we're gonna have Michael King and Ron Marinaccio at the top of their game. We'll have Peralta, who was great last year. We'll have Herman and maybe Schmidt, whoever they put out there. Jonathan, who's
Tommy
really
Canley
starting.
back.
Tommy Canley, great move.
So excited.
I think he'll end up being the setup guy more than the seventh inning guy. Um, if Clay Holmes struggles, I think Jonathan really is starting to look like he could be a closer. I do. Last year, the way they were treating him, um, they were giving him a lot of high key situations to take care of. So Clay Holmes, I have trust in. Think he'll be great too. He seems to fit into New York well. But if he does struggle, which was a problem at the end of the year for us with Chapman and Clay Holmes, I think we'll look at the deadline to see who's available. I know personally, I was hoping to get a Craig Kimbrell type of Dave Robertson just to solidify it more. But our pitching overall is set. We'll get a guy. Hopefully at the deadline, it's Reynolds. I'm gonna throw a name out there. Shohei Ohtani's gonna get traded in my belief. Half a season.
Wow.
Uh, that's a bold prediction. If he goes anywhere at the trade deadline, Dodgers aren't going to be in it. They'll be in it to a degree, but they're not going to be the Padres. Padres are going to dominate that league this year. Dodgers lost Anderson. Yeah, you're hoping on a healthy Bueller. That might take one more year to get fully healthy. They lost Trey Turner. They lost Justin Turner. They'll be in it, but that's the Padres league to lose. And the wild card is all NL East. So if the Dodgers are out of it, which is the team I do believe he eventually signs with for 10 years, 500 million, whatever it is. I just think that's inevitable. I can see him getting traded at the deadline if there's no potential future with the Angels to a contender, and he would seem to fill that need of one more bat and one more guy to slot in the 5 hole. So I don't know. Maybe I'm getting everyone's hopes up, but I could see it happening.
Well, you bring up an interesting point, which means you probably don't think the Angels are going to be that good this year.
Well, let me take a step back. I think they will be good. I'm hoping that if he is available, we can get him. That's if they aren't. I think they'll be better. I think they made very quiet moves over the offseason, getting Gio Urshela.
Great move.
Unbelievable, great move for them. They also got who am I blanking out on? From Seattle. Or not Seattle. I'm blanking. They improved. They got one more outfield piece.
Hunter Renfroe.
Hunter, thank you. So they got him. That's 2 more pieces. Healthy Trout. Trout's still the best player in baseball. Aaron Judge is the face of baseball.
Trout's the best player.
What? Trout.
I'd put Judge at 3 right now.
Yeah, and it's no disrespect to Judge. Judge is the face of baseball.
Mm-hmm.
He is. Anyone who disagrees doesn't watch baseball. But Trout arguably is the greatest player that we'll ever see when he's healthy. And Ohtani is the pitching and the hitting. It's just incredible. So I think it's a shame if you put Mike Trout in a situation from the beginning of his career where he's partnered up with Albert Pujols, the other best player in the game at the time, and they can't make it happen. And then by some luck, you get Pujols, Trout, and Ohtani, and you can't make it happen. And then you get Trout and Ohtani in their prime, and you can't. They just seem to not be able to. Their problem is they've never built a rotation, and they're not building a rotation around Ohtani. And you can't win a game or a series without a rotation. You can win one game, but you can't win a series.
Well, it's actually interesting because their rotation had some decent pieces. Like Detmers wasn't bad last year. Adding Tyler Anderson.
Syndergaard in the beginning.
Yeah.
He was pretty
Tyler
good.
Anderson's a really good arm. That's a great get for them.
That's who they got, Tyler Anderson. Yep.
And they have some good pieces. So I think the bigger issue might be their bullpen because they traded away their closer last year, Iglesias. So I think if there's anything to worry about for the Angels, it might be the bullpen.
They need prime K-Rod back.
Oh, he killed the Yankees.
He was good. Then he went to the Mets.
Yeah, and then produced and was on the mound for one of the greatest moments in the history of baseball.
Oh, the ball drop.
That was I don't even I couldn't even imagine being a Mets fan.
Well, the Mets don't have fans; they have spectators. That's a Bronx Zoo line.
That's a great line. That's a really good line.
They got spectators. That's what we say.
Now, if you had to pick between one of the two, Volpe and Peraza, to start the year at shortstop, who would you rather?
I love them both. I think Peraza looks like he can be a phenomenal major league player, and I think he'll end up being our third baseman in the future. Volpe at short. People will say, why not? Peraza has better range at short. Uh, Volpe was our number one guy in the system for a long time now. I think it's time we bank and go all in on that idea of a first round draft shortstop. Maybe I'm thinking more from a marketing perspective, uh, but it's very similar to Derek Jeter, right? So that's why it's like the story is awesome. First round, born in New Jersey, just like Jeter. The story's there. So you can't build a team around a story. He has proven that he can hit. If people do say eventually Volpe needs to be at second and Peraza at short, that's fine. I want them both in the infield. I think it's time for both of them to play. So, but he's our number one guy. I think right now I'd say Volpe starting at short. But if Peraza has a better spring, maybe he's the guy. And he was up here already with the major league ball club. I'm a fan of his. I love the way he plays. I love his defense. I love his fire. So I think they're both going to be the future of this infield, along with Tony Rizzo at first for a couple more years. And I'm excited. But yeah, I think it depends on who has a better spring. Right now, our number one guy is Anthony Volpe on the charts. Give him a shot. But if not, I'm okay with either.
I think both of them have the chance to be really good. I like Peraza a little bit more at shortstop because I think his defense is just so good.
And I get that, and 100%. I'm not going to disagree.
I think the thing with Volpe, and I think it's an interesting thing, is I think you should either move him to third or second. And I
Okay.
think I know a lot of Yankee fans love Gleyber Torres and they love the idea of him. But at the same time, you have the ability to trade from a surplus of players now if no one gets hurt. And Glaber's a great player. I love Glaber. But I
Yep.
think if you could trade him to pick up a reliever at the deadline, I would consider making the deal just because Glaber at times has shown to be a little bit of a head case as a player. When he gets in his own head, he goes on prolific slumps.
I think Glaber, if he's with the Yankees, I love it. If they have to use him as a trade piece, I'm okay with it. I think he can be involved in a piece of the deadline for Brian Reynolds for half a year. I think
Mhm.
he could be a big marquee player in that and with a bullpen arm. So I think it may happen. If Gleyber Torres is having a great Gleyber Torres year, I don't think they're going to trade Gleyber Torres.
I agree.
But if he's having a decent year, I think he'll be on the trade block.
Yeah, and I would hate to see it because I really do like Labor, but at times it's a little tough to see him hit what I think he hit 108 in March or no, in August.
Yep.
So you can't have that at certain points. And I think the defense definitely helped him, but I think if there's one guy, Brian Cashman should have never moved to shortstop. It really messed his whole psyche up.
Yeah, at the time it was what we had to do. I feel he had the potential to. I think he was in the Cubs system as a shortstop. We moved him to second. I believe I could be wrong, but I get why we had to do it. But yeah, I think it definitely moving around pieces. We see that a lot with our prospects with Andujar, Clint Frazier, moving them around up and down. What do they call it? The Scranton shuttle, right? So
Yeah.
uh, it definitely doesn't help. Doesn't help.
So, and my last question, obviously, is if there was, and this is an interesting one. If there was, I'll actually have two. If there's if you were the GM of the team right now, and you had to kick one player off the team and add one player onto the team, who would you pick and why?
Okay, I will answer that. That's a tough question. I will answer that, and I mean, no disrespect, because I think he's been a good player. I think he's struggled in New York recently. I'm hoping he has a great year. Aaron Hicks has struggled.
Mhm.
There's no question about it. So if we had to move one player off the roster, the current roster, I guess it would have to be him. I did say in the offseason I thought he'd be included in a trade. I love him as a person. I think he has shown great moments as a player. But if I had to pick one, he'd be the player because I would substitute him with another outfielder, and that man's name is Bryce Harper. So
Yeah. Uh, he could have been a Yankee. I'm not upset that he isn't a Yankee, but that
he has that Philly persona. That energy. I like it. I've always loved him. He's my favorite before Anthony Rizzo, who was my favorite non-Yankee. Then it instantly became Bryce Harper because Rizzo became a Yankee.
mhm.
I love Harper, always have, and that's the only reason I'm choosing Aaron Hicks is because we need to make room in the outfield if that happens. And he ain't going anywhere, sadly. But I wish him nothing the best. I really wish he won a ring last year. He plays baseball the right way. Energy, fire, passion, and obsessed with the game.
He's an amazing player, and I think people don't realize how genuinely talented he actually is.
Yep.
Because a lot of people give him disrespect for how he struggled in the outfield for a little bit. He had some not down years, but years where he wasn't playing up to his potential. And the fans really, he is, in my opinion, the fourth best player in baseball when healthy.
I agree.
It's it's
100.
Trout, Otani, Judge, then him.
Yep.
And
Without question.
if you look at what he did in the postseason, it was incredible. He was a one man really wrecking crew carrying that team to the World Series and almost won
After
it.
half a hurt season.
He was on a torn UCL.
Yep.
It
He's
was an
incredible.
unbelievable.
They'll be back. They
Yeah,
got better. They didn't just get Turner. They improved the rotation. They'll be back. They'll be in that World Series again. I think the Mets didn't do enough. The Braves didn't do enough. I think they're going to run that division this year. I think they have the energy, the momentum. Braves could win it, but I think the Phillies will be back in the World Series within the next 3 years.
I know this sounds crazy, and I'm gonna give a little bit of a hot take, but I think the Mets finished third.
Yeah, I agree with
The
you.
rotation is just too much of a concern, and the offense is the same as last year, where they still don't have a DH, and that offense can be really streaky at times.
Yep. And I'm not just trying to bash the Mets.
No,
They just didn't do enough. If they got Correa, it's a different story, but they didn't. And
hmm
they needed that one more piece to be successful, and it didn't come to fruition.
And now my last question, I want to end it with a good one. If there's any person you could pick right now from the past Yankee, present Yankee, future Yankee, who would you pick to interview and why?
Okay, good question. Um, well, I've interviewed Derek Jeter when I was with TMZ, so that gives me the obvious. Everyone's going to want to choose Jeter from my generation, right? So he's my hero growing up, but I got to interview him, so I'll be a little more creative here. Um, it comes down to three. I love Mickey Mantle, I love Babe Ruth, but I'm very fascinated by the careers and the lives of three Yankees: Lou Gehrig, Joe DiMaggio, and Thurman Munson. Um, I think when it comes down to it, I would choose Lou Gehrig, um, because he inspired so many people without playing baseball. Um, he continued to show him to keep going, and I think that's just a very cool, life to live to inspire people the way he did. And his speech was just the most monumental speech in sports, and considering himself the luckiest man. I just think he's such a hero to people. I would love to, have gotten to know him a little bit just to interview him. So I choose Lou, but DiMaggio, I think is another Faz. Besides, yeah, Lou would probably be the answer, but it's very close with DiMaggio. I think I have answered this question before with DiMaggio, just because he was married to the most famous woman on earth, and he was a New York
hmm
Yankee. I mean, that was when baseball was at the heights, right? Joe DiMaggio is married to Marilyn Monroe. What was that like? What was that life like living? I mean, you're a star, she's a star. It was like the modern day A Rod and J Lo,
Exactly.
but I don't think people recognize that Marilyn Monroe is probably 20 times bigger than J Lo. She has an Instagram, and Joe DiMaggio has 500 million followers. Like Joe DiMaggio was the guy, and it's fascinating, that story. And Thurman Munson, another tragic ending to an amazing career, but more so, Thurman Munson tragically passed away just trying to go see his family. So for me, it's never been just about the play on the field. It's about the person you are. And the number one important thing in life, I don't care what it is your family. And he was clearly a family man. So I would have loved to, just ask him, why was it so important for you to balance life as a dad and a player? I think that's very, very cool that
That
he was trying.
incredible.
He was just trying to be a dad. And I think those would be my three.
I think if I had to pick three, one of the three is easily George Steinbrenner.
Great, great. That's a great pick. The greatest owner in history.
I completely agree, and I just think I would love to like just pick his mind on
Yep.
like winning, losing, and how he was such. I know a lot of people didn't like George in the early '90s,
Yep.
but there was not a man that was more of a stand-up gentleman than he was. He ran the team with nothing but class,
Yep.
left
Respected the
behind.
fans.
He was like he didn't just respect the fans, he was a fan.
Yeah.
He really he didn't want it as much for himself as he wanted the fans. He,
No.
in my opinion, is one of the most motivated winners I've ever seen. And just to get the thought behind why he was so motivated to do what he would do
Mhm.
is something that I would always be forever interested in. DiMaggio and Gehrig are two of the most interesting. DiMaggio was really the first. I mean, everyone knows Babe Ruth, but DiMaggio was really the first A-list celebrity to play baseball.
Mhm. Well, with the media, of course, TVs and things like that.
And Mickey Mantle, Yogi Berra is someone I would really want to. I'll pick him as my second. I'm trying to be original here because with Yogi, he was just getting to listen to him talk about all the amazing stories he had, the Yogiisms
He was
that
bigger than life. I mean, he was
he
friends with
really was.
Sinatra. He was friends, that whole team. I mean, there was a Yankee team that had DiMaggio, Mantle, Berra, and Rizzuto. Put that in perspective.
Those are four of the great four players that have their numbers retired. It's amazing.
It's crazy. Well, I was lucky enough to see the '90s team. We had five guys that had their number retired. Sorry, six guys: Bernie, Paul, Jeter, Posada, Pettit, Rivera,
Torre.
Jorge. Yep,
No, Joe Torre.
and Joe Torre, the manager. So yeah, that's crazy.
And I think the last one, because I've always wanted to listen in, I think people don't get, I think people have, I feel like with Shohei Ohtani have a little bit degraded what Babe Ruth did because without Babe Ruth, baseball wouldn't even be close to where it is today.
Babe
He
Ruth put
is,
baseball on the map.
in my opinion, he's probably the greatest baseball player that ever lived,
I'm not
considering
gonna
that
argue it.
he was basically he drank beer, got drunk, and hit home runs.
Hot dogs. He had hot dogs.
Hot dogs, home runs, hot dogs, home runs, beer, and cigars were basically the name of Babe Ruth's game. But if he was just like he could easily adapt it and been an amazing athlete in the modern MLB. Because if you look at it, he was not the healthiest. He was overweight a little bit. But I think if you put him with modern training, he would be at the exact same level, if not better than Shohei Ohtani.
Yeah, and that whole argument when people say, "Oh, those players wouldn't play today," they weren't trained that way. Well, they were the best athletes of their time, right? So um they would have adapted with the training and things like that. You're right. Babe Ruth was still a big guy, muscular. He would have worked out. He wouldn't have just he would have done what the Aaron Judge workout plan, right?
Exactly. And like I think of it this way: imagine a lineup of Ruth and Judge.
And Mantle, add Mantle, and Jeter at short.
Yeah. All right. So now you've now prompted me to ask one more final question.
Okay, all-time Yankee lineup.
All-time Yankee lineup,
Ah,
and you need a five-man rotation too.
okay. Um, Berra catcher, Garrick first. Uh, I'm gonna move Rizzuto to second. That counts. Jeter at short. Greg Nettles at third. Um, Ruth, DiMaggio, Mantle. That's right, center, left. DH would be Reggie Jackson. Bench players would be Bernie Williams. Um, and I'll put Aaron Judge there now, just to spice it up. Um, five-man rotation. Um, Whitey Ford, Ron Guidry, Andy Pettit, CC Sabathia, and I guess the fifth one is where it gets hard because you got to choose. I'll go with Mike Mussina.
Great
Um,
Yankee.
Great Yankee. He just missed his World Series ring by 1 year. So I'll put Musina at 5, and then the bullpen, Rivera, closing, Gossage, setup. Sparky Lyle would be in there. Uh, and then I would go with one more guy. Let's see. I think you could go with from the 90s team. Trying to think. Trying to think if I can even move a starting pitcher. Um from the Yankees to the bullpen. I'm trying to think all-time bullpen guys. Let's yeah, we'll leave it at that. We'll leave it with Sparky Lyle.
All
Third
right.
guy.
So I'll give you mine, then we
Mhm.
can depart. I'm gonna go Munson at catcher
Okay. Munson would be
because
the third guy on the bench. There we go. Sorry.
all right, because I think with Thurman, if he played, if he had a full career, I think he would have been at that level of Berra. He was a Yankee captain. Not many people realize that.
Mhm.
At first base, you have to go Gehrig,
Yeah.
but there's a lot of other options. You could go Mattingly, was great. Tino was great. Mark Teixeira is one of my favorite players ever. He
He's
was
great.
great. At
A
second
second
base,
base could be Willie Randolph too. I know I
yeah,
put there, so
at second base, who?
yeah, it really comes down to I guess you could put Rizzuto, but it'd be Willie or Robinson Cano.
I'm not the biggest Cano guy.
He left.
He's a little bit of a trader. He left for the money. Yeah, so at second, I'm actually gonna go Jeter.
Okay.
At short, I'm gonna go A-Rod.
Wow, that's a bold take.
So I mean, they're both two of the best shortstops of
I
all
get it.
time,
I get it.
but A-Rod slightly better defensively.
Okay.
And at third, ooh, this is where it gets a little difficult. I'm
You
gonna
got
actually go. I'm gonna go Mattingly at third
okay. He did play that one game at
because
third.
Mattingly did play third. I don't know. Is there any other third baseman I'm
It
missing
comes
out
down
on?
to it's Greg Nettles, Scott Brocious, and then uh from the last 50 years. That's what I'm thinking of. Uh yeah, those would be the standouts.
Hmm. So I'm actually gonna go Mantle in center,
Okay.
DiMaggio in right, and I'll go Judge in left because I think Judge, and then I'll put Ruth at DH because I just think that having Ruth out there would be a little bit of a defensive liability.
Okay.
Actually, I'll go DiMaggio in left, Judge in right,
Okay.
and then Ruth at DH. For my one, I'm gonna go Whitey. He's the best pitcher in Yankee history.
Yep.
Idris two. Now 3 through 5 gets really interesting. Pettit's probably my three.
Mhm.
I really like CC at my four, but I'm gonna try to be different because
Okay.
CC is another one of my favorite Yankees ever.
Yeah.
You know, uh, if I go, I know the thing with the Yankees is they don't have insane like longevity starting
Well,
pitching.
Mel Stoudemire was one. He was a good pitcher.
Yes, Stoudemire's really good.
Tommy John was a good Yankee pitcher.
Yeah,
Um,
but like not like
Catfish Hunter.
career.
Catfish Hunter. He might be there.
Hunter's up there. I might. I'm gonna go two of recent vintage here.
Okay.
I'm gonna go Garrett Cole at the four.
Okay.
And if you really need a big guy to win you a big game in recent Yankee history, playoff Tanaka was that guy.
I can disagree. I love Tanaka.
One of
If
my
he's your
favorite
five guy,
Yankees.
I'm with it. I'm with it.
Because I think Garrett Cole at the end of his career is going to be one of the best pitchers in Yankee history.
I agree.
Man doesn't get enough love for he's a stud, ace, number one pitcher. You don't have many of them in the league.
Cy Young this year.
I it's him or Rodon. I really think those two are, and I think they're gonna push each other
Yep.
if they can both stay healthy.
Yep. I agree.
And then my bullpen, you have to include Rivera's the greatest reliever of all time.
Yep.
I'm trying to think. So now
Goose is up there.
Goose is up there, Sparky's in there, and I'll go one
I'll look that
more.
up real quick. I feel like I'm blanking on names. Let's see.
David Robertson, you could put in there.
I was thinking him too. Let's look. Yankee bullpen.
All time, yeah. I'm gonna look at Yankee save leaders of all time.
Chapman. He's up there actually. Oh, Betances. He was great. I'll put
Ooh,
Betances.
I
Prime
like
Betances.
Betances in my bullpen. That
And I was
man,
gonna say Red Ruffing before. He was good back in the day. Soriano had a good year. Lee Smith. No, Lee Smith wasn't with the Yankees. Yeah, Betances would be on mine. I loved Betances.
I like Betances. And I'll put Robertson in there too. Robertson was a good Yankee reliever for a long time.
Did Betances retire? No, I'm curious.
He did retire, I think,
Right?
but
Okay.
at his peak, 5 straight seasons with 100 strikeouts or more, only reliever in history to do it.
Four straight All-Stars.
Yeah, he was something. I like Chapman, but I think if you're looking at a guy that needs to succeed in the playoffs, Chapman more than not had epic
Yeah, he was
collapses and
good. I mean,
failures.
yeah, we can't look back on it and be like, "Oh, Chapman wasn't good." He was good,
He
but
was,
he struggled, and he was still a Hall of Famer at the end of the day.
maybe. Andrew Miller's another guy.
Amazing. He was him with the Indians might have been the second best reliever I've ever seen in history, besides Mariano in the postseason.
He carried them to the World Series.
He was out of this world. That was a battle of our former rotation: Chapman and Miller, and we had Betances all in one bullpen.
The fact that that 2016 team, they had the three relievers and no one else until the young kids came up.
Yep. We just missed it by a hair. You add that bullpen to the 2017 Yankees with Andrew Miller, it's a different story.
Maybe.
And it's crazy because you gave up Miller and you got Clint Frazier.
Another trade that Justice Sheffield too. They ended up getting us Paxton.
Yep.
I liked Paxton. Paxton was a good
It was
Yankee.
good. It was solid. 2 years.
Yeah. But that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for coming
Thank
on,
you.
Jake. It was a
I
pleasure to
appreciate
have
it.
you. Let's go
Great
Yanks.
talk. Let's go Yankees.
Thanks.